The marathon, 26.2 miles of on the rivet running brutality. For some, it is the pinnacle of running endurance. For others, a bucket list event to tick off on their running journey. Get it right and it will leave you feeling elated and satisfied, but get it wrong and it can be a brutal and lonely walk to the finish line. It's fallen apart. I'm at 36.5k now and I'm barely managing 6-minute kilometers. Oh dear. Now I'm currently training for what will be my 9th marathon, and what I thought I'd do in this video is just take you back through my previous 8 marathons one by one, so that you can not only see the progression in my time over the years, but also I'll give a little bit of an insight into each one and share some thoughts about my performances and how they have changed and improved over the years. So let's begin the journey with marathon 1. So my first marathon took place in June 2016, and it actually wasn't a standalone marathon. It was part of an iron distance triathlon. Now, I remember going into that race with very little knowledge of experience, and so I went in there quite naive, but was quite proud of the performance I pulled out on that day. I managed to run a 4-hour 15 marathon. Of course, I slowed down over the course of the run, probably from about, I think, kilometer 12, and I'll put the stats up on the screen. But it was a performance where I had to show grit, I had to show determination, I had to adapt, I had to think about fueling, and basically just had to run with my heart as well as with my lungs and my legs. It was a special race as well. I managed to finish at the same time as my good friend Dave. We both crossed the line together, as you can see in this picture, and it was also the day that I proposed to my now wife. So a day filled with happy memories. So marathon number 2 again took place at the end of a long distance triathlon, but this was a slightly different one. A couple of guys had thought of the idea of trying to equalize the time spent doing the disciplines. So they lengthened the swim to about 7 miles, shortened the bike to about 60 miles, but kept the run a marathon distance at the end. This was not a good day. This is the one and only time that I've ever cried during a race, and those tears actually happened during the swimming portion of the race, which is challenging when you're wearing goggles. I finished the run in a time of 5 hours and 20 minutes, and I'll give that a performance rating of 4 out of 10. So fast forward to February 2020, and now running has become the main sport that I'm doing. Triathlon is no longer on the table. And what I decided to do in February of 2020 is actually go out and see just what kind of marathon time I could do as a bit of a benchmark as I started my really serious running journey. So with super pacer Dave, we went out one day and clocked a time of 3 hours and 49 minutes. And now inevitably I slowed down towards the end, but it was the first time that I had run the entire marathon, no walking. Nutrition went really well, and I give that a performance rating of about 8 out of 10. And that kind of motivated and spurred me on to train seriously for marathon number 4. Most of his training actually happened during COVID, and the last 2 weeks of my training plan were actually spent in quarantine or isolation, because I come back from Spain and therefore had to run up and down the garden for 14 days. I'd set myself the target of going sub 3:30 and was delighted with the performance. Splits really nice and even. Nutrition went really well, and I gave myself a performance rating for that marathon of 9 out of 10. Marathon 5 took place in June of 2021, and by this point I've been taking my running really seriously, training properly, trying my best to follow good quality training plans, and I'd gone in to the Milton Keynes Marathon with high hopes of doing a really good performance. In fact, I think if I remember rightly, I'd set myself the quite ambitious target of going around sub 320, maybe even getting towards the 315 mark. This was a 2-lap course of about 21k for each lap, and then a finish in the Milton Keynes Stadium. And some days you just know within the first couple of miles that it's not going to be your day, and this was one of those days. I didn't like the course. It was quite twisty. There were quite a lot of small little like pedestrian like crossings and bridges to go over that just knocked your rhythm out a little bit, and there was quite a sharp hill at the end of the first lap. The wind was quite strong. Yeah, I remember it well as not being a race that I did a good performance in. Time was 3 hours 35, and as you can see, significant drop at the end of that race. It was a miserable finish for me. Not a great performance, 5 out of 10. But like most of us, that bad race just left me feeling motivated to push harder and do better next time. And so I'd entered the virtual London Marathon, which took place that year in October of 2021. And this was a good day. I remember putting on your London Marathon top. You got a number as well that you could pin on. I remember seeing other runners out doing their marathon on the same streets as me. The occasional car would honk you and beep you as you went past them. It was a good day, and performance wise I did really well. Managed to bounce back from the Milton Keynes disappointment and do a time of 3 hours 27. I think I'd had some humble pie, realised that at that point I wasn't a 3 hour 20 or 3 hour 15 marathon runner, and just focused on executing a really good race, which I did. Performance rating 8.5 out of 10. And that takes us to the final 2 marathons, Marathon 7 and Marathon 8. And both of these took place after I started my YouTube channel, so I've been able to document them and film them, and I'll drop some of the footage in whilst I'm talking. So the first marathon was the Chelmsford Marathon in Essex, and that took place on October 2022. Coming off the back of that virtual London Marathon the year before, I trained hard and I'd set myself the ambition again of going for a sub 3:15. I really thought I could do it, and that's the pace that I went out at. That was my aim on the day. I remember getting to the halfway mark in about 1 hour 37, 1 hour 38, and just thinking, okay, we've got a chance here, we've got a chance. And as so often happens in the marathon, the wheels just came off and my hip flexors are in agony, and I just not got it. I thought about a sub 320, I think that's slipping away. I'm gutted and I'm sorry. It was a great, cheers buddy, it's been a great training series, a great block, and I'm gutted it hasn't materialised into a better race day. I was gutted. So much hard work had gone into that day, and I remember just thinking, right, you just got to snap yourself out of this now. You still have a chance of maybe getting under 3:30, but that's not going to happen if you're just walking around feeling miserable. I remember seeing the sub 3:30 pacer go past me as we were nearing the finish line, and I thought, I can't let this happen. I need to get under that 3:30 mark, and I managed to grind out a time of 3 hours 27. Performance wise, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Although it wasn't the time I wanted on the day, I was proud of how I managed to dig deep and still come away with a fairly respectable time, all things considered. And that, dear viewers, takes us to the last marathon, Marathon 8. Now, what I had done is entered this marathon just before marathon number 7, with the idea that if it didn't go well on marathon number 7, the Essex Marathon that we just talked about, I would have a backup about 2 months later. So this marathon took place in December of 2022. It took place at the Goodwood Motor Circuit, so it was a multi-lap event. I think each lap was around sort of 3.2 miles or something like that. Completely flat. There was the risk on that day that if it was a windy day, it would be quite challenging because you'd be quite exposed to the wind. It was a cold day, but it was a perfect day. The race went really, really well for me. I remember holding back at the start. I paced it really well. My nutrition went really well. I even stopped to go to the toilet twice during that run, but I was still able to come out with a great time for me of 3 hours 19 minutes. I was absolutely thrilled to bits. Still not quite the 3:15 that I want at some point, but performance wise, brilliant. 9.5 out of 10. A negative split. I remember hitting that final lap and doing those final few kilometers and seeing 4:20s on my Chorus watch and just thinking, wow, this is amazing. This is what it feels like when you nail the pacing strategy of your run. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You know, what's your progression been like from when you started running, from doing your first marathon to your last marathon? Some of you might still be, your times might still be improving. Obviously there's a point when, for all of us, those improvements stop and our times start to regress. But that's why I wanted to include the performance rating in there as well, because although sometimes the time has been slower, the performance has been better, and I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. It's not all about the time, but how you perform on the day. So look forward to hearing your thoughts and comments below. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please do, because it's really, really satisfying and encouraging to see those numbers go up. And I will see you in a new training video very soon. Take care for now.